never been a moment you were forgotten. You are not hopeless. Though you have been broken, your innocence stolen. I hear you whisper underneath your breath. I hear your SOS, your SOS. I will send out an army to find you in the middle of the darkest night. It's true, I will rescue you. There is no distance that cannot be covered over and over. You're not defenseless. I'll be your shelter, I'll be your armor. I hear you whisper underneath your breath. I hear your SOS, your SOS. I will send out an army to find you in the middle of the darkest night. It's true, I will rescue you.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, Seth.
And it looks like we lost Tony.
I can see him. Well, there he
Oh,
is.
there he is. Lost you there for a moment, sir.
I'm back, buddy.
I'd like to thank everybody for joining me this evening. Thank you, Josh, Tony, Sebastian's Army, my mods, Mr. and Mrs. E, Aunt E. There's a lot of people out there. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Betty.
How's our audio, guys? Does everything sound okay?
I think from what I'm seeing, it looks all right. Let's see here. The chat is still flying.
Is it still flying?
Yeah.
Do I need to slow it down to like 60 seconds?
I would try that. It's a great thing. You know, there's a lot of people, a lot of support. It's a very nice thing, but it is just, it's impossible to see, you know.
Did it slow down?
It looks like it slowed down a little bit. I think.
Is my green light strobing too much for people?
Not for me.
Did we get rid of our echo?
Echo's gone.
Okay.
Awesome. I don't hear an echo.
Yeah, you know what, Seth, I don't know if you've closed that out or not, and I'm sorry, but 90 seconds might be the best. I mean, I'm sorry. It's
Shame on you. You're supposed to be the expert at this, Josh.
Look, man, you can never tell the support that people put in the chat, man. And these people are supportive, you know. It's it really is a beautiful thing, to be honest with you.
I appreciate all of it.
I do too. I think it's amazing. And
We to echo what Seth said, we certainly appreciate, first off, Josh, we appreciate you being here with us tonight, buddy, as always.
thank you for asking me and having me. I'm honored and appreciate it. And like I said, I'm honored to be here.
Want to say thank you to all of our moderators. We've got a bunch of them, as you can see. We'd like to hope and think that everything will be positive tonight, but if not, then you guys know what to do there. More importantly, we want to thank the just overwhelming love, support, prayers that we continue to get. Seth continues to get. They are not unnoticed. We know them, we hear them, we see them, we feel them. Please continue praying. We've got a big date coming up. As everybody knows, Sebastian's 16th birthday is on December 7th. It's going to be an emotional day for all of us. Just continue to keep Seth in your prayers. Seth, brother, I don't know how you continue to stay strong like you do. I just, Josh and I were talking about it today. I mean, for you to show the strength you do, it's quite inspiring. So if everyone would please just take a moment of silence. Seth has got a prayer that he's going to read to everyone, and I'm quite certain there won't be a dry eye in the house when this is over.
We have a lot of missing children, and it's not just my child that's missing. We have a lot of children missing. More than 500,000 missing children in the United States alone. And this is prayer for missing children. Heavenly Father, we come before you with heavy hearts, lifting up all the children who are missing, stolen, or lost. You know each one of them by name. You know their face, you know their fears, and you hear their silent cries. We ask for your divine protection over them. We ask you to guard them, guide them, and deliver them from harm. May your light pierce through the darkest corners where they may be hidden, and may your justice bring swift resolution to their plight. We pray for strength and comfort for their families who endure unimaginable pain and wait in hope. Grant them perseverance and surround them with love and support. Lord, we also cry out for justice. You are a righteous and holy God who sees all. We ask that those who cause suffering to these innocent children be held accountable, both in this life and the next. May their hearts be convicted of their evil and their deeds exposed to the world. And if they do not repent, may their punishments be a reflection of the pain they have inflicted, facing your eternal judgment. Lord God, we trust in your perfect will. Let the lost be found, let the broken be healed, and may justice prevail. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. That was beautiful, brother. Thank you for that. So what we're going to do tonight, guys, is a lot of you have been here from the very beginning. Josh, you have, the first 60 days, as most of you know, that I was involved in another case and was not here for those first 60 days. And we've been blessed with a lot of new followers in the case. A lot of people have been asking questions. They don't know where to get real answers. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to start back on February 25th. And we're going to let Seth tell his story, his thoughts, his feelings, his frustrations, the things that have gone right, wrong, and somewhere in between. So what we want to do, Seth, first off, is February 25th. You go to work. You're at work at the Davidson County Sheriff's Office. Tell me about that night. just normal night? Tell me about the night of work leading into the morning of February 26th.
I mean, I woke up, did my normal thing, got dressed, left. I arrived to the garage around 6 o'clock. Nobody really, unless you live here in Tennessee, you don't know the traffic on 24, and it's horrible. You never know if somebody's going to have an accident or wreck, or if there's just going to be a slowdown. And so work may start at 7 o'clock, but we're supposed to be there 15 to 20 minutes early in order to get all of our equipment issued to us. So being there at 6 o'clock is normally what I aim for every day so that I'm not late. Went in, got my equipment issued, told what pod I'd be going to, and it was just a normal, regular night for me. I didn't think it was going to be my last normal night.
So Josh, first off, you're a participant in this and you're just as much engaged as we are. So anytime you want to cut in, brother, you don't need an invitation. Feel free to jump in.
God, thank you.
So we know that allegedly Sebastian went missing sometime from between, let's just say 7 o'clock that night to 6 o'clock the next morning. We do know that he was reported missing at 6 o'clock that morning, thereabouts. So what did that look like for you? Was there a 911 call made by Chris or Katie to Sumner County Sheriff's Department to notify you that there was an emergency with your son? I mean, how did that look?
Well, they never contacted my work. I got out of there about 7 o'clock, and I was talking to some new officers that had just graduated through the academy, and just having conversations, because when we get done, a lot of us officers were in the garage. We talk about how everything went so that we can just prepare for the next day, because most of us are coming back to work the next day. And down there just shooting the shit, not a care, like it's my day off, I'm off now, so there was no rush for me to get to my vehicle because nobody let me know anything while I was at work. And I spoke to other officers, and then I was like, hey, y'all have a good one. I'll see you, the next day we work. And I got in my truck about 7:20, and I saw that I had a missed phone call and a text message from Christopher Proudfoot saying, 911. And that's when I turned around and I called, and that's when I found out my son was missing.
So what was that conversation like when you finally got him on the phone? And do you happen to remember what time the text was versus the missed call? I mean, was that right at 6 o'clock? Was it at 7 something?
6:22.
Okay, so they went through the business of Katie calls Chris calls the sheriff. And then when all those calls were made, then they reach out to you for the first time.
The text was at 6:22. From my understanding, they called the sheriff's office at like 6:33. So,
Seth, what was the first thing that Chris said to you on the phone? What was the very first thing he said?
Don't be mad.
And at any point, did he ask you if you had seen Sebastian or heard from Sebastian?
He never asked me that sort of stuff. They knew I was at work, and they didn't bother to call my work. I was pretty much
And
an
you
asshole.
say they knew you were at work. Is that what you just said?
Yeah, they knew I was at work.
And I'm assuming that Josh or I or anybody else that really wanted to get an urgent message to you could call Sumner County Sheriff's Office and say, we have.
Got me.
Okay.
They live in Sumner. I work in Davidson County.
Yeah, I mean, they could have called and said in Davidson County and said, hey, we got an urgent message for Mr. Rogers, right?
Yeah.
Had you ever gotten messages like that before, or ever gotten somebody called up there trying to get a hold of you, or no?
No, I haven't. There's never been any emergencies or anything. I've gone as far as on my refrigerator, and I had given Katie a copy of it, but I have a whole list of the number to call and then the extensions for every pod, including at that point in time would have been my lieutenant's office as well. I mean, there's every extension to get into dispatch, to get into the lieutenant's office, the sergeant's office. Every pod, there's an extension that you would have been able to, to get to.
So they really didn't even need to look for that. You gave it to her.
Yeah. Chris said afterwards that they didn't have it. So.
Okay. So you get the call. He says, don't be mad. What was your response to that?
Don't be mad, but Sebastian's missing and the cops are at our house. Like,
is that one of those things when you hear that Sebastian's missing, you go, well, he's got to be around there somewhere. They're going to find him, in 20, 30 minutes or something. Was that the feeling, or was it, was it more grim than that?
Him telling me that my son was missing. My son has never been an eloper. He's never been one to go missing. Never have I ever had the phone call ever that my son was missing.
So was it, I think what Josh was asking is, was it, like, we'll figure out where he's at, or was it that pit in your stomach that every parent has had when their child's missing for 5 or 10 minutes and they can't find him?
I've always known where Sebastian is. I've always known who he's with or where he's at. I mean, 7 o'clock rolls around. I know that he's getting on the bus or getting ready to. The school's picking him up. He's going to be at school. If it's on the weekends, I know he's with his mom. And it's never been one of those things on not knowing where he's at.
Right.
So me getting this call, and it was just like, I got to get over there. That was my only thought process was to get to their house.
So how long was that conversation between you and Chris?
Probably less than 15 seconds.
And then you said, I'm on my way.
Yeah, I was already in my truck, started it. As soon as that I heard that shit, I was backing out of the thing and heading towards the entrance for the garage so I can get out.
So what does that look like then? You leave Davidson County, and where do you go then, and what do you do?
It took me like an hour to get there.
Straight there.
I mean, it was just pedal to the metal and go. Morning traffic going straight over there. I didn't get pulled over. I didn't see any cops or anything, and I didn't give a shit.
Were you continuously checking your phone just in case something?
No, I have a Bluetooth set up in my truck, so if it rang, it would have automatically answered. If I get a text message, it notifies me, and I'll read the text message out loud.
And no phone call on the way there.
No. They didn't. They didn't.
So the one thing I'm not hearing through this is obviously you didn't have Sebastian with Chris, you had him with Katie. So there was no conversation with Katie before you got to the house.
None at all.
Okay, so go ahead.
So I get there when I pull in, I literally go all the way up and turn around and come back because there was no parking in front of that house. There were police cruisers, SUVs. There was the truck that had the drones. They were already had drones out flying, looking, and there was the vehicle with the dogs. They were already there when I got there. I pulled in. I took a moment to look and see who all was there. That's how I know, you know. And then I proceeded to watch what they were doing for about 5 or 10 minutes. Was watching police, sheriffs, and everybody go in and out of the house. It kind of surprised me that they didn't have the house on lockdown. Child's missing. You would think that they would have cordoned off the area, not have people walking through the yard, walking everywhere, destroying any type of evidence or covering up any type of smell or anything else. I mean, we got drones and we got dogs, but you also got officers just walking everywhere, willy nilly, not paying attention. I saw some of them that were going around the windows on the outside. There was some in the back of the house where the backyard, walking around the fenced-in area.
Were you able to walk right into the home?
Yeah.
Nobody questioned you?
No.
Nobody asked who you were?
No.
You walked past police officers?
Yes.
Oh,
okay. Wow. So when you walk in, you said you left work at what time?
7:22.
So about an hour. So let's just say you arrive at 8:30 or so, correct?
Yeah.
Who's there that you recognize outside of law enforcement?
Sarah, Katie was there. Katie was there. Trying to remember. It's just as soon as I walked in, like I remember walking up to the stairs, nobody saying anything. I opened the door, I walked in. The first thing I looked down at the left, and there was Sebastian's shoes. There was his old pair of tennis shoes, his new pair of tennis shoes that he just got, and the boots that I had just bought him. And it's like, well, all of his shoes are here. You're just, and I walk in, and Katie's right there in my face. Like as soon as you walk in to the hallway, because you walk through the door, and then there's the dining room table is here, and then there's the carpet in the living room, and there's like a divider wall right here, corner. And I walked around, and she was shoving her phone in my face, showing me the picture that is on the Amber Alert. And she was like, "Look, he was having a good day." And it's like, it was a picture taken on Saturday. I find out later. I mean, at that point in time, I was just like, "Why are you shoving a picture of my son in my face? I know what my son looks like, and the picture doesn't say shit."
It was just a photo. No, nothing, no border, no.
Just like wanting to shove it in my face, and like, he was having a good day. Well, the picture shows that he was smiling, so yeah, he was happy at that moment. I didn't understand the point of it.
Was she being questioned by law enforcement at the time, or were they just because from what I understand about if law enforcement believes that a child is a runaway, is specifically an autistic child, a lot of the times they want the mother or father, somebody that's recognizable to the child, their voice out there asking for them. I find it odd that they weren't doing that, because if Sebastian was running away and you would have this mob of people looking for him, it would possibly scare him. And so was she preoccupied with something else, or was she sitting there, or was she talking to law enforcement?
There was a lot of detectives already in the house. A lot of them, well, one of them was sitting at the dining room table. There was 2 or 3 of them in his room, and there was a couple of them in the living room. Katie was showing that stuff to me in my face, and I was just trying to figure out why she was doing that. And that's when I was like, why is his shoes over here? If he ran away, wouldn't he have shoes on? And I mean, it was just.
And what was her response to that?
She didn't respond to that at all. Neither did law enforcement.
So when you saw Katie, I'm assuming that Chris was there, correct?
No.
Okay, he hadn't made it there yet. Was Kathy there?
I want to say yes, she was.
Okay.
I mean,
anybody else that was family of theirs or extended family?
No.
Okay. So what was, I know you talked about what Katie did, but was she a typical panicking mother? Was she losing her mind? I mean, what was her state of mind?
I didn't notice anything really about her state of mind. At the very beginning, I was trying to figure out what was going on in this house for my son not to be there. So,
Was she screaming? Was she crying? Anything like that?
Do what?
Was she screaming or crying or?
No. The next thing that I remember about her, because I went into Sebastian's room and to see what was, see what the room looked like. And I remember going into his room. His switch was plugged in on the floor. His bedspread and his bed was not made. And there were some clothes on the floor. And that was about it.
So you were able to walk into Sebastian's room?
Yeah. I mean, nothing about this showed any type of procedurals being done at all. I mean, it was just pretty much open. People were just walking around. They weren't. There was no scene to be. What's the word I'm looking for? It was chaos in that house. Cops weren't acting like anything. And Katie kept saying that he ran away, and it's like.
So Josh, you do a lot of work with Chris McDonough from multiple things, but from the Cold Case Foundation, most famously. So they're not looking at that. You tell me this. This is more of a question. They're not looking at that as necessarily as a crime scene in that situation, but one thing that we do know is that it is a scene. Correct?
Yeah. So basically, it sounds like what they showed up to was that they're under the assumption that you know he's an autistic child who has ran away. Happens a lot, and typically children are found pretty fast. That do run away. Relatively fast at least. Sometimes week or less, but yeah, it to me, it seems like they didn't feel as though there was a crime, but I mean, it is completely odd that a child goes missing and that people are in and out of the house.
Right.
You could walk into a child's room, nobody checking on who is who. That's a
Because
that's
if
an odd
it,
thing.
I mean, without them knowing, they could speculate. Clearly, they speculated he was a runaway.
Yeah.
But without them knowing, it's also fair to speculate that it could turn into a crime scene.
Yeah, but the problem with this stuff is you got to understand this isn't like Chicago or New York or something like that. A lot of these small county sheriff's offices have never really, they've dealt with runaways and things like that, but when it comes to like this large of scale and uh, this search that they went through, they're not always equipped for that stuff, and they're not experienced at it a lot of the time. I would imagine that this case was probably something that the sheriff's department has never seen. Anything quite like Sebastian's case. And if you go into a bigger city, unfortunately, they are more equipped and have deal with this stuff a bit more. And not saying that but they're just they have more resources, they have more experience. But it does sound like Sumner County did eventually call in for help, but the initial stages of an investigation of a child going missing, I mean, each hour is
Crucial.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I mean, on the outside chance that it would turn into something else, I mean, we got people running in and out of the house and in and out of the bedroom. I mean, at that point, it's contaminated.
It's contaminated, no
Yeah.
question about it.
So, how long does this go on, Seth? I mean, is it
Well,
two or 3 hours of just people running around the house like crazy people, or what's going on?
me personally, I'm losing my mind. My son's missing, and I see nothing going on. I don't know how long they've been searching. I don't know when, they were initially contacted. I saw that nothing was going on in the house. I left. I turned around, got in my truck, and started driving everywhere with my window down, screaming for my son. If he ran away, I don't know how long he's been gone. They didn't tell me when they thought that he had gone missing. I didn't have any type of time frame. No, nothing. I just started driving around. Like, I took a road until until 2 or 3 miles had gone down the road, and I was turn around and road would show up. I'd make a left on it. I found out at one point in time I was at the very top, the highest point in Sumner County, because I was speaking to a gentleman that lived in a house, and it, he was like, "Who you looking for?" Because I saw him in the yard, and I was like, "Hey, have you guys seen child about 5'5", sandy blonde hair, white kid, skinny, very, anywhere?" And they were like, "You're talking about the missing child?" And I'm like, "Yeah." Everybody in the community seemed to already know about it. I mean, they had the reaction from Sumner County when it came to asking people to come help. Other law enforcement agencies, they had a lot that they asked to come help. I mean, Wilson County, Williams County, I mean, there was
So
people.
it felt like it felt like it was all hands on deck pretty quick, right?
It was until later on when I started thinking about it.
So how did they Josh asked you if they just let you walk through the house, nobody asked you who you were, let you walk into his room. Did you have any interaction with law enforcement? And if so, how did they treat you?
Well, I was still in uniform, which is probably why they didn't ask me who I was. And Katie probably told him who I was after I came inside. I mean, obviously, her coming up to me and shoving her phone in my face, kind of, you know, obviously she knows me. And obviously, with her statement, look, he was happy, you know. I still don't understand why it matters if he was happy or not. I mean, to sit there and make that point to me, like, I don't get that. He's missing. Doesn't matter if he was happy on Saturday or Friday or Sunday. The fact is he's missing. And it's just,
Was it normal, you know, backing up before we move forward, was it normal for, you know, she made a point of saying in several interviews that she took him to do all of his favorite things, all the way from breakfast through activities, through visiting family members, through his favorite place for dinner. Was that a normal situation? I mean, you know, was it, or would they normally, you know, maybe she'd take him to a place he liked to eat, but not just load him up on all of his favorite things? I mean,
I know I wouldn't. And for all the stuff that she was supposedly doing with him, that's a lot for him. I mean, that's a lot. I have a video and pictures of him at the bowling alley. And I've got a picture of him. He is not happy. I mean, his hands are in his pockets, his shoulders are slumped forward. I mean, he just looks like a teenager that's being drugged to Chuck E. Cheese's
on Saturday,
on Sunday
on Sunday. Okay. Okay.
because they were at the bowling alley before they went to the restaurant they went to go eat long, where the Texas Roadhouse.
Did his mood, like, you know, a lot of people, including myself, you know, up and down. I mean, could he, you know, have a rough hour or so and then be fine the next?
Well, I've noticed that before with me. I mean, unless he's mad at you. If he's mad at you, good luck.
Yeah.
You know, if he's mad at you, you know, he's a teenager.
Yeah.
You know, his whole thing about being mad is he's going to try to stay mad at you as long as possible, and you know, doesn't really last long at my house. But he's normally not mad at me at my house. You know, things are a lot laxed here. Um, a lot of people have given me grief over the fact that I let him do things here that he's not allowed to do at his mom's house. But this ain't his mom's house.
Which is absolutely normal for any family splitting custody of any kind. You know, some things fly at mom's house, some things fly at dad's house. I mean, that's completely normal, and people are overly critical of that because, you know, I mean, they they can be, I guess.
Well, I think Josh, you and I talked about it on your show one night. I mean, people made a big deal about Seth allowing him to have access to a phone. And in the world we live in today, I mean, you know, these 15-year-old kids that roll into my house have $1,500 phones, and you don't see a one of these kids without a phone. I mean, to me, it's more odd they wouldn't have a phone.
Correct.
You know, he was, speaking of phones, he was so locked down on that phone that he would, when he came to my house, he would literally plug it in and leave it in the kitchen. because that phone couldn't do anything. I mean, at one point in time, I remember asking Chris and Katie, listen, I know you got his phone locked down, but can you at least put it so he can use the calculator? You know, if he's doing math or he's doing something, or I need him to make a list for me. I mean, there's got to be something that you can do. And it's like, so they put it so you could use the calculator and stuff on there. I mean,
Did they ever tell you what they thought the danger of him having the internet was?
they didn't want him to have access. I mean, at one point in time, you know, it was locked down, so he couldn't play video games on there. And then Katie had complained, and Chris had complained a couple times that instead of going to sleep at night, he'd be up watching YouTube videos.
Okay.
You know, and it's like, well, it's simple. Put a timer on it. When it's bedtime, no more internet access. I mean,
So at some point, Seth, you quit driving around and you ended up back at the house with Katie, with Chris, with Kathy.
Chris wasn't there when I came
Chris
back.
hadn't got there yet.
Okay. So he still wasn't there yet, but you got back and clearly Katie was there, Kathy was there.
I came back, I turned around, and I spoke to one of the detectives. I was like, has there been any word, anything yet? You know, walked in. I don't feel comfortable around my ex-wife and her family. I mean, I really don't. I mean, they're not, she's my ex. I don't feel comfortable around her. I mean, I have my reasons for not feeling comfortable around her. She drugged me through the dirt and did a lot of dirty, underhanded stuff, in my opinion. And I'm not there to hang out. You know, I'd come back, speak to the detective, any word, anything. No, okay, turn around, and I would leave again to go search more. You know, I didn't have. I don't have the patience to sit. My son is missing. I'm supposed to protect him. I'm supposed to find him. He is missing. My goal is to find him.
So when you come back there and you have a little bit of interaction with law enforcement, you know, how were they treating you? How were they treating Katie? Was it about the same? Were they showing her respect for being the mom, you respect for being the dad? I mean, what did that look like?
I was a ghost on the wall, a fly maybe. I mean, come in, ask them if there was any news, get a no. And that's about all they wanted to really talk to me about on the first day. They were like, you need to stay around so that we can get a hold of you. And it's like, well, you can get a hold of me. I got a phone. Call me. I am going to go look for my son. Well, make sure that you don't get out and go traipsing through the woods, because the last thing we want to do is you go missing and now we're looking for both your son and you because something happened to you while you're out there. And I'm like, well, of course not. I'm staying in my vehicle, my window's down. I'm not going to be walking through the woods or anything. That's y'all's job. Y'all are going to be going through the woods. You're all will be taking the dogs, and you guys got the drones out and stuff like that. You know, I'm just looking for him, screaming his name, you know, driving around, looking everywhere, looking to see if he's underneath bridges, if he's in a culvert, you know, wherever I see. I don't know this area, so I'm looking everywhere.
So you get back at some point, and when you get back, you go out, you search a little bit, you're screaming for your son again. It's almost become like a routine. You go out for a little while, you search, you come back, check in. At some point, you got back there, and Chris was there, correct?
Chris was there, and about this, Chris was there And now the detectives wanted to talk to me, and they're like, hey, what direction do you go when you go home? And I was like, well, I have either take 24, and if I take 24, I take Long Hollow Pike down to, what is it? It's, I told him I take it all the way down to 41, make a left, take it over, make a right at the Sonic, and then I take that road all the way to 24, so I bypass 65 and all the traffic. And they were like, okay. I said, if I take 41, I take Long Hollow all the way down to 41. Instead of making a left, I'll make a right, and I take it all the way up, and it will take me on the other side of exit 1. It's a long way, but when there's a backup on 24, it's not that much longer. It's an extra 10 minutes. And then it was like, there's times that me and Sebastian will drive through the country. We'll make a left off of 41, and we just take the back roads to get home. So those are the two major ones, 41 or 24. I spoke to him. I was like, hey, if he did run away, then he's probably trying to make it to my house. Is there any way we can pull footage from here to 24 and footage on 24 all the way up to exit 1, or footage on 41 all the way up to 40, and I was told that, do you know how long that would take? That would take forever.
Wow. So you walk in and you see Chris. Does he run up and give you a hug and say, I'm so sorry, brother. We're going to work together, and we're going to find our son? Or how does that look?
Chris showed up, and I really didn't have much of an interaction with him at the very beginning when he showed up, because law enforcement at that point in time, I've been there. I want to say it's like 1:30, and the detective in the case turns around and asks me, he's talking to me about what direction I do to go home. And then they're like, can we come to your house? And I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. I've already called up here to my friends, my neighbors. I've already communicated with them. I've already communicated with other people to come to my house, to put a note on my door for Sebastian if he comes. I've already spoken to my neighbors. Have you seen him? Is he anywhere? Nobody has seen him or anything, but they're now aware in case he shows up. So I turn around. I was like, sure. I took 24. They followed me all the way up here to my house. And then they come in. They go through my house. They trash my son's room. They strip the sheets off of his bed. They flip his bed over. They've taken everything off, like he's not hiding in between the sheets and the mattress. There's no reason for some of what you're doing. And his room is a complete total mess. Everything is like on the floor. And they're like, hey, can we go ahead and can we take your electronics to look through them? And I'm like, well, yeah, sure. It's like, I don't have anything to hide. So they turn around, they take my PlayStation 4. They turn around and they take Sebastian's PlayStation out of his room. And then they turn around, they see a tablet that my mom got him for Christmas back in 2020, and like literally I grabbed the charger so they could charge it. But I was like, he hasn't been on that in years. And they plug it in and they turn it on, and they're like, oh, this hasn't been used since 2021. And I'm like, well, I already told you. He's not ever on it. He's more on my PlayStation than anything else.
So, Seth, at what point in time was that they showed up to your house?
It took like an hour and 15, an hour and 20 minutes to get from Katie's house to my house. So we're there 2:30. We're here.
That afternoon.
Yeah, that afternoon.
So did they ask you to go back to your house with
Yes.
them?
Well, they asked me. Yeah, they asked if they could go back. They asked if they could come to my house and search my house.
So they're walking in and out of Chris and Katie's house, and this is where I'm a little confused. They're walking in and out of Chris and Katie's house. They're not ransacking it. They're not tearing anything up. They're not going crazy, correct?
They didn't even take their electronics.
So then they come to your house and completely different MO.
Yes.
What do you make of that, Josh?
I mean, unless they thought that he had made his way there in the middle of the night somehow. I mean, if it takes an hour and 15 minutes to drive there in the middle of the night barefoot would probably, I mean, I don't know, unless they suspected something, but I don't, when you told them, did you tell them specifically, did you say to them, I have nothing to hide?
Yeah.
And what was their response to that?
Okay.
And that was it.
That was it.
And so they were just asking your permission. Can we search your house? Can we take this without warrants and stuff? And obviously you agreed to everything,
Yes.
and received most of that stuff back. I believe, but,
In time.
Here's the thing that it's like they left Sebastian's PS4 in his room. They never once took it. Oh, let me rephrase that. They took the electronics out of my house. They didn't take Sebastian's laptop. That's still on my kitchen table.
Never?
Never. They never took his laptop. Still on my kitchen table. Right where he left it. Because I want things to still be where he left them.
Deep breath, buddy.
They came into his room. They took his PlayStation. They took his Switch. They took the tablet that he never even used. He used the laptop more than he used that tablet. And yet they left the laptop on the kitchen table. They took my PlayStation. They wanted nothing to do with my laptop. I mean, it's just like the things that they took. And like literally 2 weeks went by and I'm like, am I going to get this stuff back? You said that you guys would only have it for a couple days. I don't know about other people, but I use my PlayStation if I'm watching TV. All my streaming services run through my PlayStation. I have a smart TV, but it's an old smart TV. Like Netflix doesn't even work on it anymore. I got that notification probably like 5 years ago.
Yeah, no, that's pretty standard to use your console for that stuff.
Right.
So it's like you took all this stuff, but you didn't take anything out of his room at his mom's house. His Switch was still on the floor when I was there. The PlayStation was still there. The next day, that's when they took our phones. And then they complained about the fact that Chris gave them a phone, Katie gave them a phone, I gave them my only working phone. The other phone that I had no service, just Wi-Fi connection. And I use it so that I can listen to music while I sleep. Because that's just what I do for background. And then they turn around, and they had my phone for almost 12 hours to download it. I use my phone for everything, you know. It's not like they had my phone long enough that my mom and dad didn't know what happened. That my friends and stuff were calling Clarksville PD to do well care checks on me because they didn't know what happened. And it's like, they asked for my phone. I wasn't even able to use it to send any messages to people to let them know, hey, law enforcement has my phone. Don't be worried if I don't answer it.
But you were willing to let them do whatever they wanted to do and take however long they wanted to take, because in that moment you knew you had nothing to do with it. But in that moment you were thinking about, hey, I want to get myself cleared so we can move forward. Correct?
Correct. I don't want them wasting time looking at me when they need to find my son.
Is that what you felt like? You felt that they were looking at you?
After they came to my house and they trashed my house the way they did, yeah. Yeah. When they took my electronics and they didn't touch Chris or Katie's electronics for over 2 weeks. Over 2 weeks. They didn't touch any of their electronics except for their phones. They didn't take Sebastian's PlayStation. They didn't take his Switch. None of that stuff.
How do you know that?
Because I called up Chris and I said, Chris, they still have all of my stuff. I can't even watch the news. I can't do anything. I can't relax in my house. I can't sit down and watch a movie. And he was like, well, you can come pick up Sebastian's PlayStation. What do you still have this stuff? Yeah, we have all of our stuff. You can come pick up his stuff.
Wow.
And then all of a sudden I go to Chris's house that morning. And this is 2 weeks later. And he's like, I can't give it to you. My account has been hacked and somebody has bought in games like Minecraft and stuff like that on his account. This is how I found out that they had never collected any of the electronics at that house. That means that it was more than 2 weeks before Katie even turned in the dash cam off of her vehicle. That tells me that they were suspecting me of having my son before they were even investigating the Proudfoots. They didn't do shit.
They ask you for an alibi?
Told them I was at work.
But did they ask you?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was like, I've been at work for the last 12 hours. I was at work starting on camera at about 6 o'clock when I pulled into the garage until I left Monday morning after 7 o'clock.
Did they tell you that they were going to verify that?
Yep. And I
Did
told
they
them,
tell you if they ever did verify that?
They did verify that.
They told you that they did.
Yep. My work let me know that they verified it as well.
There you go.
And how would that be verified, Seth? We know that there was time card stamps that were issued that your attorney got, but there's also, they would also go directly to the cameras showing that you were on pod and that you never left that area, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
The way Davidson County works is that it's not the Freedom of Information Act, but you can request information because I'm a civil servant, which means I really don't have very much privacy when it comes to me being employed.
And there would be even less hoops to jump through law enforcement to law enforcement, correct?
Correct. They would, somebody would ask, they'd come in and they would show them the video.
Gotcha.
So is this still the first day?
That they asked this information where I was.
No, when they went through your house.
Yes, day one that they went through my house.
So you went back with them to your house from Chris and Katie's. And
Yes.
how long did that whole ordeal take?
They were here for about an hour and a half.
And then did you head back
No, they told me to stay here.
to stay at your home?
Yes.
Did they give you a reason why?
No.
So is that the end of day one?
Yeah. Except for several phone calls that I was making. Find out if there was any update, any information, anything going on.
So they told you not to go back to Chris and Katie's.
They told me not to go back that day.
The next day you went back?
Yes, I did.
And that's when you started the day after day getting in the woods, correct?
First of all, we were again told not to be going through the woods, but it was driving around every road, screaming for Sebastian's and hollering his name. I would literally leave here. I left here at like 4:00 in the morning, and I was down there by 5:15 before the sun came up. Would go to Chris and Katie's house, check in with law enforcement. By then they had and I was going to the command center that they had set up. So I was going there, checking in, seeing, because they were no longer there were detectives at the house, but all the search crews were at the command center.
So during that time, would they pull you aside and say, Seth, this is what we've got going. This is where we're at. This is what we've learned. We just wanted to keep you in the loop as the father. No. Was there any of that?
No.
No, it doesn't sound like it would be, especially if they were searching his house the first day. I mean, they were looking at him as a potential suspect, which, by the way,
is normal.
I have no problem with. I mean, right. Nor should anybody, but it should go both ways.
It's normal.
Yeah, but
I didn't see it happening to them.
Right. No, that's where it gets odd.
Yeah, and I mean, in the spirit of what Josh said, going both ways, I mean, you would at least think that they would be as critical of the last person seen with him.
Especially
I saw them trusting them more than them trusting me.
Right.
Even though my shit's verified, and I apologize because I know that I have used some foul language, and I know a lot of Sebastian's army doesn't appreciate it, but I'm trying.
You're doing fine. So do you because I've seen the neighborhood. It's an upscale neighborhood with very nice homes. Typically I know, people say, well, never judge a book by its cover, and stereotypes and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if that's how law enforcement approaches stuff or not, but it's a nice neighborhood, and I think that maybe they think, that kind of stuff, kidnappings and stuff don't always happen in those kind of neighborhoods. And
bear with me one moment. I'll be right back.
Yeah. And so maybe, I don't know. I mean, it does seem like the two were getting treated much different, Tony. I mean,
yeah, I mean, it just kind of seems like to me, I mean, and again, you know more about this, and I'm asking a lot of these questions. I want Seth to be able to tell his story, but I also want to know because, since you and I first met, I've not been one that wanted to understand all of the investigative pieces. But as this goes on longer, it seems to be more necessary to understand what happened those first, few days, few weeks, etc. And I'm a guy that's watched Netflix and watched true crime documentaries and followed a couple of cases, before this one. One I was involved in, and then two other were national cases. And I mean, they seem to be very critical always of the last person seen with the victim.
Yeah, but the one thing that is buffering this investigation from the jump is we have an autistic child who ran away. And
Right.
if that's what Katie's telling them, that is what they're going with at the moment. I mean, and earlier when I said that law enforcement isn't always well equipped, small town, and people are saying, no, that's not an excuse. I'm not saying that it's an excuse. I'm saying it's the reason. I'm not making it an excuse for them. I understand that it's not an excuse, but that doesn't mean that it didn't happen.
Right. Right.
And so this whole thing has been kind of hampered from day one. If Sebastian was not a runaway, all this time has been lost.
Right.
To
on that philosophy.
Correct.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so,
well, and let's just say that they took what KP said at face value. The kid ran away. I mean, Seth's there early. He's talking about there's no shoes missing. Okay. So maybe at that point, in my mind, there'd be a red flag that goes up. But while they're investigating her theory that he ran away, with as many people running in and out of that house as there was, you'd think there'd be somebody drilling down on her story, her timeline.
Well, look, I've a 15-year-old boy in his home, in his room, being kidnapped out of there. Kidnapped is a high risk maneuver.
Low probability.
It's just one of those things where you go, yeah, I don't like an intruder, meaning like somebody coming inside a house that's locked or allegedly locked.
Right.
It is you don't really go, well, yeah, that's a really solid theory we got there. I mean, I could see why they would think that he was a runaway, especially when the mother is telling them that. But I mean, I saw in her interview, I guess it was 9 days after that, she was very adamant saying that he wasn't a runner.
There has been, not to interrupt, Josh.
No, not at all.
I'm going to let you all know that no matter what TBI says, Agent Simmons literally told me, Chris, and Katie not to do any interviews.
Give you a reason why?
Nope. Chris called me up at one point in time, was like, hey, we're going to do an interview. Do you want to join us? And my response to that was, did Agent Simmons say that we could do interviews now? Because I mean, I'd been turning down interviews because I was told not to. And then I turned around when he said he was going to do an interview. I turned around and called Agent Simmons and said, hey, are we allowed to do interview now? And he was like, well, we never really told you couldn't. I was like, you said not to do any interviews. You said not to talk to the press.
Well, I mean, I guess they can advise you of that, but it's weird that unless they have some lead that they're working that they don't want to, blow.
Well, the lead that I think that they would have had at this point in time, that before that would have been a particular video that's going around.
The lights.
Yeah.
The flashlight video. Mm.
Right. Well, yeah, that was interesting too, because that thing got leaked, and
That got leaked by a particular, I hate to say human, but person, individual, the day after the vigil I held at Sebastian school. The first vigil that I held at Beach High School.
So they tell them, they advise you guys not to go to the press, not to do interviews, right?
Correct.
And they also, according to CP and KP, advised you guys not to search, right?
Yeah. I told them that they could shove it where the sun don't shine, and I told them that on day one. Like, you're not going to have me sitting in a house waiting for you to go do your job. This is my son. I'm a body. I'm a human person, and I know my son. So why wouldn't I be out there looking for my son? I even asked them, do you guys have a bullhorn so that they will hear that he'll hear me, because I'm screaming. I lost my voice. On day 5, I couldn't even speak anymore. So all I'm doing is driving around looking. I lost my voice from screaming for the last, 4 or 5 days. And the weather was extremely cold by then. The first night, it wasn't that bad. I think it got down to like 55, 60, 55 degrees that night. But when Wednesday came around, we had below freezing weather. I'm sitting here. I searched until 11:30 that night, because all I can think of is my son was out there and it's freezing weather and he's got no clothes, he's got no coat, he's got no shoes. I don't know where he's at. And this is the weather that will kill a person. And it really gets to me, because as soon as it starts to get dark, they stop searching. And it's like, you need to continue to search because he's still out there somewhere.
Did they bring thermal imaging drones in for after dark? Because that's obviously when it's highly effective, especially when the temperature drops.
They did bring those in the first week. They had EquaSearch out there with their drones, and they had a special type of program that they were running so that they could get below the foliage and stuff, because you had a lot of dead leaves and stuff on the ground.
I find it a little bit odd. And again, I mean, I'm just dissecting behaviors, but I'm a father of a 15-year-old child. And, if my child goes missing and I have the mother who's an ex, if they're going to tell us two things, if they're going to tell us that they don't really want us searching and they don't really want us doing interviews, the rule that we would both break would be the searching part. We would say, hey, we understand that, you don't want us in front of a camera because we're a basket case right now, but I'm sorry, we can't abide by the searching rule because we're going searching. I mean, if you could have 10,000 people out here and it's not enough for us. So, we can't honor that. I mean, am I off base there, Josh?
No, I mean, I'm a father of 2, and it would, I mean, you would, without being dramatic, you would have to arrest me.
Right.
I didn't give a shit.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I would feel. I would say, I'm going to search you, you're going to arrest me.
But it would be easier to stay off of camera than it would be to keep from searching. in my opinion, right? I mean, because you're not accustomed to being in front of a camera anyway, and nobody's looking for attention at that point. You know, the media is doing their thing out there. I mean, they don't need you involved. I mean, it'd be a whole lot easier to stay out in front of a camera, me as a parent, than it would to not search.
I mean, it would feel like you're dying a slow death.
Right, right.
Still dying.
I understand.
So, Seth, back to the phone thing. There's been a couple questions, and explain. You went into great detail with me. I asked you. I said, "Tell me about the phones." They took a phone. They didn't take a phone. You had a phone. One phone was turned on. One phone was not turned on.
I have a phone that has active service. I had another phone because when I switched companies, the phone that I had, the company that I switched to, it wouldn't operate on their system. So I had to buy a new phone. So I bought a new phone. Well, I keep my old phone because obviously it's still a good phone and I have Wi-Fi hooked up to it. So, you know, I can watch YouTube or listen to music on it or anything else and not be, you know, if a phone call comes in, my stuff's not interrupted. And when I have Sebastian here, I'll be listening to stories like creepy pastas and stuff like that. And me and Sebastian listen to that sort of stuff while we're cooking dinner or whatnot. You know, I don't like to be interrupted from watching something because the phone rings.
Right. Well, and so essentially what you had is you had one phone that you could connect to the internet, and you had another phone that had cell service, correct?
Yes.
And without, I know how you go to sleep. How do you go to sleep?
I put on a creepy pasta and I lay in bed until I pass out.
So you're basically listening to an audio story, and that helps put you to sleep.
Correct.
Okay. So for anyone that thought that he had a phone that wasn't taken that had any significance, there's the answer.
They took that phone though too.
Oh, so they took them both.
Yeah. I mean, they asked for that one. And the next day when I went down there, I took the phone and handed it to them. And they kept that one until I got both PlayStations back. They gave me that phone back, and they still have his tablet. They still have his Switch. I mean, they took when they took his Switch, they took his charging stand, okay, that was connected to the TV for his Switch, and they took his games. Like, why'd you take his games? I don't understand that.
Right.
He doesn't have access to go online with his Switch. He does not have a Nintendo account. I did not buy him a Nintendo account. I bought him a Switch so he could play his video games while we're doing road trips. Why, you know, if I'm sitting here watching something on the PlayStation, he can sit there in his recliner, and if he wants to watch, he can. If he wants to play video games on his Switch, he can.
Right.
You know, I didn't buy him the Switch for him to be online.
So when you
Agent Simmons literally told me he spent 4 hours on Sebastian's Switch trying to get connection to the internet to get online, and he was like, I can't. There's no way. And I was like, I know, I told you this. Unless you have a Nintendo account, there's no access to the internet. You can connect Wi-Fi to it. All that does is update your games. That's it. There's no way to chat. There's no way to talk. There's nothing without a Nintendo account.
So Seth, there was a point on the 26th, the day of the 26th, there was a point that you were at the house when all of the family members were there, correct?
Yeah.
By all of the family members, we're talking CP, KP, TB, and CB, correct? Right. They were all four there.
Yeah.
I know one of the things that got you really riled up is a conversation that they were having when you were at the house. Can you tell everybody about that?
It was day 2.
Was that day 2? Okay. But they were all there day 1.
Yeah.
Okay. Just those 4.
No, Lori Kalinakis was there too. Actually, that's her married name. But
Okay.
Yeah, Lori was there too.
Okay.
Um,
So day 2, so you had those 4 there, and then you had a family friend. A family friend of theirs.
they had a family friend.
Okay. So then day 2, all 4 of those are there. At this point, you've got the pit in your stomach. You're losing your mind because it's real. And you've talked over and over again about a conversation that happened with CP, KP, and Mama and Daddy Bowersox. So how did that go?
It wasn't a conversation on where Sebastian could be. It wasn't a conversation on what he could be going through. It was a conversation about what Chris's mom's, what jewelry she wanted. What jewelry she wanted Chris to buy her on their next vacation trip. That's what they were talking about. Not a care in the world about Sebastian being missing or gone.
So was there any of them that were frantic
No,
by day 2?
no.
And just to be fair, was it that they had a huge amount of confidence that he was just going to come home, so there's no reason to worry, or was it different than that?
Indifference. Couldn't
Josh,
stay in the house.
Josh, what else you got, buddy?
I mean, I don't. So, and they knew that. I mean, you were sitting right there, and they were openly having that conversation.
Yeah.
Um,
At which point in time, I got up and went back to my truck and went looking for my son again. Because if Sumner County's not going to look for him, I got to. If none of that family's going to actually do something, I got to. It's like I'm the only family that is looking for him. I'm the only parent that's looking for him. And to this day, it still feels like I'm the only parent looking for their lost child.
I don't think you're going to get any argument from Josh or I or the majority of the people in the chat on that one.
It's not even a debate.
well, I don't know what Chris and Katie are doing. I hope that they're working closely with law enforcement. I don't know, but I do know what you're doing, and I respect it, and I think that you're doing the same thing exactly the same way that I would. When it comes to this kind of stuff, when you're going day by day, uh, each day is different and unique, and you feel
No, it's not.
you just feel like you feel like it's a rat, like it's like a hamster wheel.
It's not even a day. I mean, it feels like yesterday, but it feels at some points in time, it feels, I mean, it's still fresh and it will always be fresh. But at the same point in time, it's just a nightmare that you can't wake up from. And when you do wake up, you just realize that you're still stuck in this nightmare.
Are some days you more hopeful than others?
There are days that I don't want to pull myself out of that bed. I'm tired, but it's not even, tired is not even a word. There's Pink Floyd said it best, comfortably numb. Just where I'm just numb. It's like I don't even, I don't know what the next person's going to say to me is. I mean, it takes a lot to even surprise me. But I never fails. Someone's going to surprise me with what comes out of their mouth. And it's just like, wow. Okay.
So we want to try very hard, especially since it's Friday night. We want to try to keep this to a couple of hours. So what we're going to do is we're going to the next couple of lives that we do, we're going to pick up, on day 3 and continue moving forward. But I've got the question. You're pretty close to being 100% confident that when you showed up at 8:30 that morning, there around 8:30, you're almost 100% confident that Kathy was there, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Did she greet you when you walked in? Did she just there hanging out, looking through jewelry catalogs? What was she doing?
She was just there. There was no greeting.
Okay.
There was no, hey, are you okay? How are you? The none of them actually have emotion that doesn't revolve around what they want in life.
So so we can take some questions at the end, a few questions, and Josh, if you would be looking at those for us. Let's fast forward to the last press conference of any kind from Sumner County was in April, correct?
Yeah. Believe that was Sumner County and TBI did a press conference where they couldn't even put my son's picture up. They couldn't even do a press conference about Sebastian with a picture of my son who was missing to remind the people who were watching that this was the child. This is what the child looks like that is missing. This is why we're here. And, what came out of their mouth was pretty much one of the last few nails in the coffin. I had search parties going. I had people being followed, and I don't like people being threatened who are trying to help find my son. But I told people to keep an eye out. If you can get a license plate number, get that, make, model, color of the vehicle, and I would submit that and give that stuff to Sumner County and TBI. And I had several people give me information, make some models of vehicles. I had some of them that got license plate numbers, and I passed that stuff on to Sumner County and I passed it on to TBI. But when they held that press conference and said that nobody was being threatened or anything else, I lost it. I lost it. It was like you guys are hiding information from the public right here. I've given you guys information, makes and models of these vehicles, license plate numbers, and you're going to come out and tell people that people haven't been being threatened. I've been followed. I've been threatened, and you guys are just going to sit there and act like it never happened. You're acting just like somebody else is acting. Like my son is, hiding at my house or something. Like he's not missing.
So just for the audience that uses the two phrases press conference and press release interchangeably, they're not the same. A press conference is an actual in-person conference. Those of you that followed the Idaho 4 case would remember that they were constantly doing press conferences. They would come out, the detective would talk, the sheriff would talk, the chief would talk. So we had one of those in April. Since then, we've
not no, Tony. You had to fill out permission to even be there. The news media had to fill out permission, and they made sure that they held that literally in a fenced-in area where they do training, so that nobody could get in there.
So
and
they didn't address the public.
Yeah, no, the only person they let in there was Nick Bears. That was it.
Yeah. So then since then we've had these press releases, which, what they do is they pick a favorite news guy. We all know who that is. And they lay a little bit of information out there, or they lecture somebody and they let him put it out there on his social media, which I guess is their version of a press release. There's been no more press conferences of any kind, whether they're open to the public or not since then. What has your communication been like with them since, let's say, April?
Communication was pretty much sporadic. Every time that I got a lead or something, I would pass that to both TBI and Sumner County. And I would get like the detective would never pick up the phone when I call. And he was like, well, I prefer text messages because then there's a copy and a record. And I'm like, okay, well. So I have all these text messages between me and him. And they're pretty, they're text messages. There's no emotion behind text messages. But
So
you kind of get this feeling of, they're not telling me anything. The last time I spoke to them in person, they were like, well, we're playing the what if game. Like, what if you did pay somebody to kidnap your son? And I'm like, well, last time I checked, I haven't fucking won the lottery. All right. And I live paycheck to paycheck to pay my bills.
That seems like it would be a pretty, first of all, it's just crazy. But second of all, they're, yeah, that's stupid.
I mean, you're kind of reaching here. I don't have money. I do live paycheck to paycheck. I do save up what little I can.
One of the questions, and I know this is a bit of speculation, but it's something that's been asked repeatedly in the chat. Never something that I've discussed, but I'm sure that you've heard of it. People were wondering if you noticed any bite marks on Chris's arm.
Yeah. I saw the wounds on his arms. After I wasn't there during that. When he was there, I did not see them.
You didn't see them while you were in the house, but you saw photos after.
I did.
Okay.
Most of the time, I want to say that he was wearing long sleeve shirts, but I wasn't paying attention to him. I took him at his word, which I've taken a lot of people at their word since this happened. And a lot of times it has just bit me in the rear end.
Right. Sure.
So there was a time, Seth, where clearly they lost interest in talking to you. I think that's fair, correct?
Oh, yeah. The last time that I had communication with them was the day that that Dwayne Chapman came home too.
So let's talk about that. So I was talking to you on the phone one day and you said, oh, guess who I just heard from? And were they just overexcited and filled with joy that somebody was going to get involved and help with the search and bring national publicity to the case? What did that look like?
The text message was something along the lines of, wow, really? Why did you do this?
So
they were so not happy.
And we decided that you weren't going to respond to that, correct?
Well, by the time that I got home, because they texted that to me, by the time I got home, they had already followed up with another one 2 hours later. Well, I wouldn't answer that either. At which point in time, I did respond to them and told them they could contact me by phone. I'll always pick up and I will always have a conversation with them.
So when we got the call from Nick and his team, we had conversation with our inner circle as to whether or not that we felt like it would be a good idea for me to reach out to them, find out what they were about, and we were kind of split on that, right?
We didn't know if it was a hoax or not.
Right. And you were, one of us was I'm not in favor. One of us I was certainly in favor. You were somewhere in the middle, as if they can help find my son, I'm open to listening, kind of thing, right?
Correct. I mean, I have always accepted help in finding my son, because that's my only goal, is to find my son. And that has gotten me in trouble.
So
on this route. And
Well, look, this is the way that I look at it. It's your job and it's your duty the rest of your life to look for your son. And I know that you know that. And I think that that's how 99% of parents feel. Their job's not over, you know. If you're
found and brought home.
Yes, correct.
So
that is your that's your responsibility. I mean, it just is. He's your responsibility. You know that. I'm not scolding you. I'm not telling you anything that you don't already know. And I believe that you were looking for your son. You know, and like you said, it's not over until he's home, until he's found.
So Josh, you may not even know this, and I know a lot of the folks in the audience, and again, we can't tell you how much we appreciate you guys' support. There's a lot of people in here tonight.
Yeah.
So I told Seth, I said, you know, you trust me, right? And he said, yes, I do. And I said, just, you know, let me call this Nick character and find out what he's about.
I'll be right back.
Okay. So Josh, I call Nick, left him a message, then I get a call back. And of course, you know, what we know now, I know I got a call back because I was being recorded, right? Which I've never had a problem with. I've never recorded a call, but I've been recorded. And so I call, I answer the phone. I get on the phone with those guys. And first thing that happens is Dog jumps in. He's on the phone. And he jumps in and he takes over the conversation. And he basically tells me that the word on the street is that my guy is potentially the lead suspect, and that you know, that I could be considered an accomplice, and that am I willing to go to prison for my guy? And I said, absolutely. If you can prove that my guy's that, and you think I'm an accomplice because I'm a volunteer spokesperson, then I'm not really sure how that would work, but sure, I'll play along with your silly game. And so he went as far as to read me my Miranda rights.
Who was that? Who did this?
Dog.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. So, you know, now I've got a guy that I grew up watching, right? And he's reading me my rights. Like, you know, I'm getting ready to go to jail for harboring a fugitive. Right.
Yeah.
And, so again, I played along, and then he goes into talking to me about the, you know, the famous, you know, the truth serum, the hypnosis, you know, all these things. And would I talk to my guy and find out if my guy would be willing to do this or that or whatever? And I didn't realize, but that was all, you know, that was all just a game to find out, you know, are we hiding anything? How convicted are we? How much do we know for sure that Seth is innocent? And what are we willing to do to help us find Sebastian? And I told Dog, I said, Dog, Seth Rogers would cut his arms off to find his son. I said, if you think that putting truth serum is going to scare him away, if you think that hypnosis is going to scare him away, I said, as long as I was there while it was going on, he'll do anything in the world to find his son. Well, an hour and a half later, as we got into the real facts of the case, it became obvious that, that they knew that Seth was not involved. But I think they needed to know wholeheartedly that we were committed to doing whatever it took to support them. And fast forward now, we've had a lot of conversations, you and I, Josh, have had about the good they've brought. And I don't know if you saw, but that reward has been bumped up to 200,000 as of today.
I heard something about that. Yeah.
Yeah. And which I think is fantastic, but, it kind of, begs the question, we went from 50 to 100,000 and 125 and 150, 175, 200. It's like we're at a reward auction. Does it not feel like that if there's anybody out there that wasn't on the inside that something would be happening?
I mean, that's kind of the that's the problem with rewards.
Right.
Typically when you have the information to hand over, you got your foot in the pile of crap,
Right. Right.
at least partially. And unless, I mean, if you read the FBI poster, it says, for the, I believe it's the location and the return and prosecution
Right.
of the parties, which are three enormous steps. And you'd have to be relatively close to somebody to know that kind of information. It rarely happens. It rarely happens.
Right. So Seth, we were talking about how Dog got involved in that initial phone conversation I had with him, where they told me they were going to arrest me and drag me away for being your friend. So fast forward to now, we had a big day today. Reward goes up to $200,000. What has it been like in your mind working with Dog and Nick and their team, as far as how aggressive do you feel like they pursue leads as they come in? Because we're getting a lot of them, right?
And a lot of leads, they pursue them. I mean, his name is Dog for a reason. I have communication with him. Nick is always calling me to let me know what's going on. I just wish Sumner County would have been communicating with me like Nick and Dog's team does.
And do you feel like that? I mean, the professional on our team is RPI, correct?
Correct.
And RPI always had a strong desire to work in conjunction with Sumner County, right?
They still do.
And it's never really happened, correct?
It hasn't.
But our PI in your mind has got a very solid working relationship with Nick and Dog and their team and all their resources, correct?
They do.
So you got to see the horsepower behind the machine, I guess Dog's machine, if you want to call it that, what that looked like working in conjunction with our PI this last week. And without getting, I mean, I know it's out there, but how did you feel about seeing all that real time, being on the phone while it was going on and watching it? Did it give you some hope?
Yes. I mean, I always have hope that my son is out there. He's lost and he's going to be found. But again, it just bolsters the hope that there's other people with the means to do it that are willing to do it. They're not willing just to say it. They put their money where their mouth is,
And you've got an open line of communication to Dog, correct?
Yes, I do.
So
He called me during the last vigil.
So
That's
tell us
how I
about,
was doing.
tell us about that phone conversation.
He just wanted to make sure I was doing okay. He wanted to know if I needed anything. He wanted to let me know where he was at, what he was doing.
Kind of a father to father talk, right?
Yes, sir.
Dog lost a child, you're missing your child, that kind of thing.
Yes.
Every time I hear dog, I hear him saying "Baby Lisa"
Yeah.
from watching his show. I used to watch his show all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was rough stuff.
And I mean, we all know that the 71-year-old dog is got to flex his muscles a different way, right? I mean, he's not running out there necessarily kicking doors in anymore, but I mean, it's dog is still dog, to your point, huh, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, he's I don't know. I'm sure that he still does but when I used to watch his show, I mean, they were very, very aggressive bounty hunters. And a lot of that, I mean, most of their bounties were off camera, I mean, they had just so many, and it sounds like they were the same exact way off camera, but they very, very aggressive, in their approach. And, they were very good at tracking down their
Very high success.
Yeah.
So, Seth, we're getting close to a couple hours. Josh, do you have some questions that we can answer before we call it a night?
I'd like to say one thing real quick before you continue, Josh.
Sure.
I gave Sumner County Chris's information, and from this all the way up to today, they have not reached out. So when you're talking about a small county not having the resources, there's been organizations, including Chris's, that has offered their assistance to help them, and they refuse to accept help.
Yeah.
Now, whether it's pride or ego, none of those two matter when it comes to a missing child.
I've only seen it in one other case where that level of help was offered and rejected. Both of them in Tennessee.
Summer Wells.
Yeah.
And it's just, I will never stop screaming my son's name. And I don't understand how a parent can stop screaming their child's name when they are missing.
When Michael Vaughn went missing out of Fruitland, Idaho, and I interviewed the mother, Brandy Neal. By the way, and I'll just say this in front of everybody, that district attorney is sitting on a mound of evidence and promising to prosecute, and still hasn't.
Interesting.
And has a lot. Law enforcement has done a bang up job. I know that they have not found him, young Michael Vaughn, but the district attorney has a case and he needs to put it into motion. Now, when Fruitland, who, by the way, did not have a lot of experience in these kinds of cases as well, the police chief, could not believe that there was an organization willing to do this. And that organization advanced that case all the way to the district attorney with evidence. And even, I don't want to say everything that they have, because first of all, I don't know everything that they have. I know that they have a lot. And it made a huge difference. And for them to sit on a case because they want to find a body is just not proper anymore. You don't get rewarded for being able to hide a body. That's why they have body prosecutions. You know, DAs get scared of that stuff sometimes, especially ones, you know, up for reelection.
So I've got two questions. I've got one for you, Seth, and one for you, Josh. You made a statement, Seth, on Dolly a long time ago. Something to the effect of, we haven't asked the right questions to find Sebastian yet. Do you remember that?
I do.
Okay. Can you elaborate on what you meant by that?
I stated that because I was wanting questions from the public that I hadn't already asked law enforcement. That was my way of trying to brainstorm questions that would lead to finding Sebastian.
Gotcha. That makes sense. That makes sense. I think some of our friends from the dark side took that question and twisted it and turned it. And I just wanted you to be able to clarify that.
There is nobody on YouTube immature enough to do that, Tony.
Wow. I want to be on the YouTube you're on, Josh.
So Josh, let me hit you with a question. Your good buddy Chris. What does he think's going on here?
Well, you know, I've talked to Chris about this case many times. I stay in touch with him about it constantly, and
what you're allowed to share.
He hasn't left the house. He thinks that the answers are there. He thinks that that's where the investigation should have
maybe if Sumner County had ever done forensics in the house, we'd have something to take on, to go.
Yeah.
But, you know, back to what you said, Josh, some of these small, you know, counties don't even know how to operate, you know, luminol.
I know. You know, I
how to put on a pair of glasses to spray a bottle, or how to put something on somebody's, you know, PIN code and pull fingerprints off of it, or anything of that sort. I mean, the first 48 hours is the most crucial, and I was there for 3 days, and I never saw them do anything along that line.
And well, I think you were away when we were talking about this. Is the case, especially within the first 48 hours, was just shrouded with the belief that he was a runaway, and that's, you know, that was a huge hindrance, obviously.
You know, the fact is that on day one, when I walked in and I saw all of his shoes right there, being a runaway is not possible. At that point in time, that should have been doubt put into that detective's head when I sat there and stated all of his shoes are right here. And then Katie turns around and agreed that all of his shoes were there. His backpack was there. His coats were there. I mean,
Seth, I don't believe he's a runaway at all.
I don't either. Never have. My son's never been an eloper. There's only one thing that would make him run away. He was running away from a dangerous situation.
I don't think he left the house on his own.
Well,
I don't see how he walks out the front door, the back door, any other door, and dogs don't hit on a scent that is that fresh.
That neighborhood is so, you know, upper middle class.
Right.
That
it's upper class. It's really not upper middle.
You say upper class?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, the homes are beautiful. The place is nice. I would think that most of those homes have some Ring doorbell cameras or cameras mounted, or I'm sure that I would just be shocked if there's not a trail of cameras. You know what I mean? And
there's more cameras in that neighborhood than there are. I would I would say there's more cameras in that neighborhood than there are in the fucking jail.
That has always been something that I can't get over, is that, okay, there's this runaway theory that they went with right away. Okay, well, let's pull camera footage. If he did run away, we would see him walking out of a house, I would believe, somewhere. The fact that there's nothing would indicate that somebody took precautions to make sure that he wasn't on camera.
And the only way you get out of there with no scent, I mean, I guess there's more than one way, but if he leaves out of there in a car or some other way, is the only way the dogs don't hit on that. Right. I mean,
right.
There's not a multitude of ways that happens. Josh, do you have any other questions that you?
I think that we've covered quite a bit.
So what I want to do is I want to thank the chat, overwhelmingly positive tonight. I want to thank our very hardworking moderators. I want to start out by thanking you, Josh, for joining us. We have been blessed the past few months to work with some good content creators. I could go down and start naming them. I mean, everybody knows we work with Betty, we work with Brittany J, work with Justin, work with Mr. and Mrs. E. Recently, we've seen some real good work by Silver on the Scene, by CJ, and got to meet him and Nart Diver. I mean, and we're going to leave some people out. War Eagle's putting some pretty good stuff out there.
Little name there.
What's that? War Damn Eagle. My bad.
There you go.
And there's more than that. I mean, there's more creators out there that we're missing. I've got my old reliables on TikTok that have been here for us since day one. Cajun and Chasing Crime. And then the people that may not have a platform, but that are supporting the content creators that are supporting Seth. You guys are the real MVPs. So we appreciate you more than we feel the love, the prayers, the support. Stand by, for information about an event that will be a public event over in Hendersonville on December 7th to honor Sebastian on his birthday. We will also have a smaller private event over in Clarksville that will be just a few of us at, but we really want the public to get around that event in Hendersonville. Don't know where it is yet, but we will have details. I want to say one more thing, and then I'm going to let you and Seth close it out. Sumner County, Eric Craddock, congratulations on your election win. I know that you listen and watch and pay attention to everything that we do. So I'm going to speak to you very directly, Mr. Craddock. I would beg you to answer the same question I've been asking you for 8 months, and I would love for you to come out and answer it publicly. Are you any closer today to finding Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers than you were on February 26th? That's my only question for you.
To add to that, I'd like to see some proof that you are, because your word means diddly squat to me. I'd be a better sheriff in my sleep than I think you could be. And I know that you've been running that sheriff's office since January, which means you were running that office almost 2 months before my son went missing. So you can't put it off on the sheriff that's deceased, sir. And calling you sir isn't a due of respect. It's just the fact that you are surely a waste of my space and time until you can prove me otherwise. You don't deserve that badge that is on your chest. That badge is supposed, we are supposed to represent the badge. The badge does not represent us. We are supposed to uphold that badge, uphold the Constitution, and uphold the people that have put you in that position and make them proud, not yourself proud. You ain't making me proud of that badge.
Elected officials are, you got to remember that the sheriffs are politicians first. And they just always are. I don't know much about the sheriff nor the sheriff's department. I find it disgraceful that after all this time they do not keep in contact with you. I don't know if they keep in contact with Chris and Katie. I do know that in the Bible, the Lord tells us to pray for our enemies, which is probably one of the hardest things to do in the world. But at this point, what choice do we have? And I also pray for Chris and Katie. I really do. I really honestly do. I pray for Sebastian, you, Seth, and Tony. I know that for some reason people think that you rake in the bucks for doing this. I know that you don't. We've had that conversation, and it's a shame that that's where most people's thought process goes. You're Seth's friend. That's what I've seen. That you care for him and that you love him, and that he trusts you. In a world where it's hard to trust anybody,
finding somebody that you can trust it just increases the amount of hope that I have.
Thank you for being there for him.
I thank you, Tony. On a positive note, I thank Sebastian's Army for being out there. Everybody on panel is part of Sebastian's Army. I'm part of Sebastian's Army, and I appreciate everybody who is coming together, that is keeping their eyes out looking for Sebastian. You see something, you say something. He's out there. We just got to find him. We got to find him. He's a lost child in this world, and it's time that he comes home. And I want to thank everybody that showed up. I haven't seen chat. I was told not to pay attention to chat, Tony.
It was from what I've seen. I mean, it was moving pretty good. It was pretty good, and the mods were unbelievable as usual.
You know, well, Tony didn't want me to be distracted by everybody. He wanted me to stay on task and focus.
Well, there's a lot of love here.
I appreciate it.
A lot.
I'm feeling it.
A lot.
I'm feeling it with it's telling me there's almost 4,400 people in chat right now, and they're all Sebastian's Army. Sebastian has a lot of people that are looking for him. And I'm not going to stop till the whole world knows my son is missing and what he looks like. And I want the whole world to help me find him. Sebastian's Army will be a world army. If it takes the world to find my son, then I won't stop until the world knows that I'm looking for him. And I want to thank everybody that showed up for this. And I appreciate your support. And I want everybody to be blessed.
God bless you guys. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
You are not hidden. There's never been a moment you were forgotten. You are not hopeless. Though you have been broken, your innocence stolen. I hear you whisper underneath your breath. I hear your SOS out an army to find you in the middle of the darkest night. It's true, I will rescue you. There is no distance that cannot be covered over and over. You're not defenseless. I'll be your shelter, I'll be your armor. I hear